effects of World War I. The easiest way to remember it is by MAIN. MAIN stands for militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. Militarianism was when the militaries worked race to build up strong armies. Alliances were formed, and this led to the kind of like domino effect, because if one country fell, another country would fall. Imperialism was a race to claim more land and become stronger. And nationalism was a fierce stronghold of the war because it led to countries wanting to fight for their country. The beginning of World War I was the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. When he was assassinated, it led Austria-Hungary to declare war on Serbia. When the U.S. joined the war, which is a turning point, it was due to the Zimmerman Note. The Zimmerman Note was supposedly sent from Germany to Mexico. It said that if Mexico joined with Germany, then Mexico would get some of the U.S.'s land. This was when the U.S. came into the war and a major turning point of the war. The final cause was unrestricted submarine warfare. It said that Germany would take down any boat no matter what. This led to the U.S. involvement in the war. Now the effects of World War I. The first was Wilson's 14 points. It was a speech given by Wilson, and its major points stated that there should be no secret treaties, free navigation of all seas, end economic barriers, and reducing the amount of weapons. The next was the Treaty of Versailles. It ended the World War. Another one was trench warfare. This type of warfare was created during World War I. It was not effective because it led to stalemates. The final was the League of Nations. It was the final peace conference. Its goal was to maintain peace throughout collective security and disarmament. Finally, there was the League of Nations. It was an organization created to maintain peace between foreign nations.
Let's move on to World War II. After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles created a bitter resentment between Germany and the victors of World War I. This led to tension. The League of Nations' lack of a military made it completely ineffective. The rise of dictators such as Hideki Tojo in Japan, Hitler in Germany, Mussolini in Italy, and Stalin in Soviet Union led to aggressive nationalism where countries would imperialize and put down minorities, such as when Germany put down the Nazis. And they did this without fear of the U.S. intervening because the U.S. passed many acts of neutrality between 1935 and 1937. Many countries adopted the idea of appeasement, where they would allow Germany and other empires to take over smaller territories in order to avoid larger conflict. The last cause of World War I was the Soviet Non-Aggression Pact, which formed an alliance between the Soviet Union and Germany, which led to the invasion of Poland. Major turning points in World War I, such as the Battle of the Bulge, the Battle of Stalingrad, and the Battle of Midway, led to the eventual victory of the Allies. The Manhattan Project was started in order to develop the atomic bomb. At the Potsdam Conference, the U.S. offered an ultimatum to Japan, declaring that if it did not surrender, that they would face utter destruction. They, of course, did not surrender, and the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, ending World War II. The Yalta Conference was held to plan the rebuilding of Germany, because after World War I, we realized that punishing them would not work, so we started to rebuild, and that led to tension between the democratic and communist countries that helped rebuild. The United Nations was also created after World War II, which was essentially the same as the League of Nations, except that it had a military.
The Cold War was a time of tension between the United States and the Soviet Union. The two ideals, domino theory and containment, were the basis for democratic involvement in the war. The Yalta Conference was held to plan the rebuilding of Germany. The West was rebuilt by Great Britain, France, and the United States, and the East was rebuilt by the Soviet Union. This split led to tension between the democratic and communist ideals. The Chinese Communist Revolution marked a spark in tension when China fell to communism. Doctrines such as the Eisenhower and Truman lent economic help to foreign nations fighting against communism. The Korean War was the first armed confrontation in the Cold War. It was the first time that two superpowers fought in another nation. Fidel Castro was the leader of the Communist Revolution in Cuba. With his leadership, Cuba became communist. After Kennedy was elected, the Bay of Pigs invasion was a major embarrassment to his administration. The Berlin Wall was a physical boundary between East and West Berlin, but it also symbolized a division in communism and democracy throughout the world. The Cuban Missile Crisis was the most dangerous point in the Cold War. The United States found missile silos in Cuba placed by the Soviets. Kennedy set up a naval blockade around Cuba and insisted that Khrushchev remove the missiles. Khrushchev did, and this marked the fall of tension. Khrushchev did, and this marked the beginning of the fall of tension. Khrushchev did, and this marked the beginning of the fall of tension in the Cold War.
After the Cuban Missile Crisis, multiple treaties like the Limited Test Ban Treaty, SALT I and SALT II treaties limited the production and use of nuclear weaponry, which led to the easing of strained relations between the U.S. and Soviet Union, also known as détente. Nixon's trip to China was the first time a U.S. president visited the People's Republic of China. This created a better relationship between the two countries. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, creating a quick rise in tension, by the red, between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. This tension began to fall in 1985 when Mikhail Gorbachev was elected to the General Secretary of the Soviet Union. Gorbachev's policies and perestroika and glasnost slowly attempted to bring about a democratic revolution in the Soviet Union. The INF Treaty, along with other treaties, limited the use of nuclear weaponry. With communism on the decline, Chinese citizens protested for their rights. They were run over by Chinese tanks and basically told that even though communism was on the decline, it wasn't going to stop. The fall of the Berlin Wall symbolized the end of the Cold War because the physical and ideological border between democratic and communist nations had been destroyed.